guys, today I'm making 30-minute naan. Bread in 30 minutes is like almost unheard of, and this naan is super, super healthy. I'm gonna be using whole wheat flour and non-fat Greek yogurt. So this is like health to a T. Eric and I, my fiance and I, have been eating this naan all week with hummus, with dinner, just plain, dipping it in olive oil, and it's just so addicting, so easy, and you don't have to feel bad about eating it. All you need for this naan is whole wheat flour or all-purpose flour, baking powder, salt, non-fat Greek yogurt, and a little bit of olive oil. That's it. So easy. And I'm gonna be using my big mixer here, or you can just do this by hand. You don't need to use a KitchenAid at all, so no worries. But I do have some whole wheat flour here. You can also use all-purpose, just regular white flour if you prefer. But I just love whole wheat flour. It just has such a nice, nutty, more complex flavor. And then I also have here some baking powder. I'm gonna pop that right in. It's quite a bit. And that's going to make this naan rise and bubble really nicely. And it's a nice substitute for yeast instead of using yeast for bread. And then I have quite a bit of salt here. So the flour, baking powder, and salt make up self-rising flour. So if you have self-rising flour, use it. Otherwise, just put all 3 ingredients in your mixing bowl. And I have my whisk attachment here, and I'm just going to start our mixer. Make sure it's locked. And you're gonna turn it up to about medium speed. And this is just going to nicely combine together all of our dry ingredients. So it's been about a minute. I just wanted all of our dry ingredients to be nicely blended together. And now it's time to add our only wet ingredient, which is non-fat Greek yogurt. You can use any fat of Greek yogurt that you prefer, but you have to use Greek yogurt. I've tried this with regular yogurt and it doesn't work out the same. But this is basically going to create our dough. It's quite amazing. So I'm gonna add all this in. It's about 1.25 cups of yogurt. So all of our ingredients are in our mixer. I have it on medium speed here. I'm actually gonna crank it up a little bit more. And the yogurt is now going to turn our flour into this beautiful dough. Look at how perfect this looks. It's pretty crazy. I'm letting the dough hook do its work now. I switched out the whisk attachment for the dough attachment, and it's basically kneading our dough for us. If you're doing this by hand, just use your hands instead of a mixer. So we're gonna let this go for another minute and then turn it off. So our mixer has been going for about 2 minutes or so, and we have a beautiful dough ball that's formed. Look at how amazing it is. And it smells so good. It kind of smells like pizza dough a little bit. And trust me, the Greek yogurt is not going to flavor the actual pita. It's not gonna taste like sour and Greek yogurty, if that's a word. It's just gonna be a beautiful consistency dough. I'm gonna flour our surface. You need a nice big working surface and a lot of flour. Be generous. And we're going to coat the outside of our dough ball generously with flour so it doesn't stick to our hands too much. And we're going to knead our dough for about 3 minutes or so. So get your muscles ready. Some good work. And kneading is basically just very simply folding over the dough and then pushing it away from you. So folding it over and pushing it away, folding over, pushing it away, and keep doing that for about 3 minutes or so. And this process will add some nice air into the dough and make it nice and fluffy and puffy when you cook it. So I'm kneading one last time, getting my final knead in. And now I'm just going to form a dough ball, and I'll let this sit on the counter for about 10 minutes just to rest the dough. Resting the dough will make sure that all those air bubbles that we infused into the dough by kneading it actually happen when we cook off the dough. Just let it sit for 10 minutes. dough has awakened. It's looking beautiful. It actually looks the same. Don't expect it to look any different. It's not going to actually physically rise. We're just resting it. So after you've let your dough rest for about 10 minutes or so, then you can pinch off little dough balls here. I like about 1/3 of a cup of dough per ball. And I'm just gonna measure out, there's about 6 naans, and I'm gonna put all my naans to the side of my board. I have my 6 dough balls, and it's time to roll them out into nice flat pieces of naan. So I have my trusty rolling pin here. I love this rolling pin because it's like actually very heavy and it makes the work so much easier. And I'm going to coat the outside of my first naan ball with flour. Make sure that your surface is really covered in flour because these are very, very sticky. And I'm just gonna go ahead and roll these out. And if you've ever seen pita or naan, they're usually kind of in this oblong shape. So I just kind of roll back and forth until the dough is nice and thin. And then I remove it from my rolling pin here. And then I make sure each side is coated nicely in flour so it doesn't stick. And then I'm gonna roll like this, kind of in the opposite direction. So it looks like a pizza, and then roll back again. So it's oblong. And we want these to be pretty thin because we're not using yeast for this recipe. So the thinner the dough, the more bubbles will form. If it's thick and doughy, you're not gonna get nice bubbles forming in your dough. So I have my first piece of naan here. I'm gonna roll out the rest of my dough, but I'm going to take this off to the stove. Ooh, it's sticking a little bit. See, I told you. I have my first piece of naan here. I'm gonna bring it over to the stove and I'm gonna show you how to cook these up. Let's go. So I put a 1/4 teaspoon of olive oil in my big pan here. It's a non-stick pan. And I say a 1/4 teaspoon because I found that if you put too much oil, then the dough and the naan gets super oily and kind of gross. If you don't put enough in there, then it can stick or really burn. So a 1/4 teaspoon is perfect per naan. And I've let this pan preheat over medium-high heat for about 5 minutes. You want the pan to be super piping hot. And I have my first specimen here, my first nice piece of naan dough. And I'm gonna go ahead and stick this right in our pan. Perfect. And I'm gonna let this fry up on one side of the naan for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then I'm gonna go ahead and flip it. And you'll start to see some bubbles pop through. Okay, so our naan has been cooking on side one for about 2.5 to 3 minutes or so, and it's starting to brown on that first side. You can also see some bubbles starting to form. So that means it's time to give her a flip. Perfect. And look at that. You can see these bubbles forming. Look at them rise. Isn't that so cool? It's like pizza dough. Boop, 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 boop. It's almost like standing on the pan. It's pretty cool from the side here too. I'm gonna let this cook for another 2 minutes on this side, and then I'm gonna flip it back over on side one just to really get those bubbles forming just for about 30 seconds, and then we're all set. These bubbles are exactly what you want. That means that you did a good job kneading away all your hard work. I'm gonna flip it one more time here. Whoop. You can see the bubbles forming. Don't worry, these will die down as soon as they're off the heat. I'm just gonna let this cook one more time on side one for about 20 more seconds and then take it right off the heat, and it's done. So these 2 pitas are hot off the press. Oh my goodness, look at how beautiful they are. Look at this texture. It's doughy. You can see the bubbles. It's amazing how good this looks for 30-minute pita. It's so crazy. I can't wait to dig into this. You can serve this with hummus. You can brush some garlic oil over it. You can also infuse the actual dough with some garlic or onion powder too, or you can just eat it plain, just like this. All right, it's my time. Oh my gosh. It's doughy. It has no hint of Greek yogurt at all. It has a little saltiness. You can taste the char on the outside of each naan. The whole wheat is just insanely good. Check it out on tastefullygrace.com. You will not regret it.